97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Adam Caplan, powered by InsideTheBirds.com.
I think we have the ability to do something really special with this group, but it's going to take a lot of hard work.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by Inside the Bird. Check out the latest podcasts. And, of course, Adam Caplan's in today as we dive into a lot of Eagles and NFL that is going on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Adam, welcome, pal.
Guys, good to talk to you this fine Thursday.
It is a fine Thursday, but I guess not if your last name's Jackson. There's a lot of stuff going on with a lot of different Jacksons, so let's dive into where we are with DeSean Jackson. Last night he had met with the Eagles. There were some reports.
We can't meet, just so you know. Nothing is happening in person, just so we're clear here.
Correct, right, yeah. But talked to Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman. There were some reports that they felt he was contrite and that he was humble and apologetic. And where are we now?
All right, so just for my reporting, Mike, I put a lot of stuff up on Tuesday. I've been quoted a lot of places, so I could just update this stuff. So, look, DeSean has pledged to, according to multiple people I've spoken to seek a better understanding, and this includes when he gets back into town, obviously. Later down the road, visiting the Holocaust Museum and talking to various Jewish leaders and other leaders, not just Jewish leaders, but doing the right thing. And look, what I reported on Tuesday is that things were not good. I would not guarantee he was going to stay on the roster. We'd have to just see what was going to happen. And DeSean would have to get through some issues with Jeffrey Lurie and talk to him, and he did. And Howie Roseman, obviously. It goes far beyond them both being Jewish. It's just that you talk about contrition. It's very, very important when people are outraged at something that he didn't say it. He used someone else's quotes on Instagram. In social media, it sets off a wildfire, and it's also a bad image for the football team. And you add it all up, DeSean's roster spot clearly was in trouble on Tuesday. I would just say, going forward over the next couple of days, a couple of weeks, Mike, just move this forward here. He's in an evaluation period of how he handles himself. It's not, there's no way to put a percentage on him remaining on the team. I just think that he's got a better understanding. And the other thing I would add is that I think his video, the video apology, though very heartfelt, there's no doubt about that. It clearly was not good enough. He didn't say the right things. And that certainly made the situation a little bit worse, as I understand it. And again, just to sum this up, this is going to be a day-to-day, week-to-week thing. We'll see where it goes.
Now, Marquise Goodwin and Malik Jackson also commented on what DeSean Jackson had to say. Has Jeffrey Lurie spoken to them as well?
That I can't say. I have no idea. Goodwin made a comment on Instagram, and a pretty detailed comment, and then Malik Jackson had some comments about the NFLPA and NFL negotiations for training camp and COVID, which I thought were, quite frankly, quite on target. There are some certain challenges. But then, he had some comments on the DeSean Jackson situation and on the way he felt. And look, if you know what happened there, Alshon Jeffrey, I believe, favorited something, and DeSean favorited something. And we're going to see how this works out. I mean, this has kind of been wildfire, guys, over the last 24 hours in certain different ways that we were not expecting. And this is not, there's, as they say in the National Football League, sometimes there's no handbook on how to deal with something that you never really thought you'd have to deal with. And it's just a day-to-day, week-to-week situation that the club's going to have to deal with.
Yeah, Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast at the finish of this whole thing, you figure, okay, he talked to Lurie. Lurie was not happy. That's obvious.
Yep.
They asked him to do a bunch of things. Is this similar to, like, the Mike Vick situation where your actions are going to need to speak louder than your words? And the Eagles are giving him a shot here to kind of make the decision for himself.
That's a great, Mike, that's a perfect way to put it. And I've tried to explain that. Jeff Mosher and I did our less than 48 hours ago, we did a video, what we call ITV TV. It's on YouTube, and it was pretty heartfelt in my end. Got pretty emotional. Not just being a Jewish person, of just knowing what I know about DeSean and knowing that he's a pretty good person, but he made a terrible mistake and what he's going to need to do going forward. And I thought we pretty much laid out where the Eagles were and DeSean's side as well. So it was very, I called it down the middle. I think you're right. It's just basically he's got to show that he gets it and it's going to do the right thing. But because of the COVID shutdown, the things that he'd like to do, he can't really do right now because he's not here, first of all. You can't be in the facility right now. And, he's also, by the way, working out in Tampa with other football players. But the fact of the matter is, see, there's another thing that I wanted to make clear to people. Had we not had COVID and him be able to come into the city, you'd be able to talk to him face-to-face, man-to-man. Doing it over Zoom or doing it on FaceTime, whatever it is, whatever communication, you can't see someone's emotions. You can't see how heartfelt it is. Seeing a video is one thing on Instagram, but the reality is, Mike, is until you're face-to-face, there's only so much you can learn about somebody.
Yeah, and, that Laurie and him have this long, tough conversation, and that Laurie's angered and he's just disgusted by this. But, the fact that I guess when they left it, there was no indication of a suspension or release or anything further. It was basically DeSean was going to show up with the rest of the team, and then maybe, I guess.
I don't agree with that, Mike. I don't know where you're getting that. I never, my sources don't tell me that. It's just they're going to see how he handles himself. It's not that he won't potentially get suspended or released. It's just that it's what you hit on earlier. It's an evaluation period to see how he handles himself.
Okay.
I'm not saying over the next week he won't get fined. I think it's an ongoing discussion based on the sourcing I have on this. It's just we're going to see how DeSean handles himself, and I wouldn't rule out anything here. It's the Eagles, not a secret. I mean, a couple people have reported, including myself. The Eagles have looked at his contract, and they'll see if hopefully it won't get to the point where they have to cut him. Just a matter of let's see how he handles himself. Let's see where the situation goes. And I would not rule anything out. I warned people, by the way, 2 days ago when everyone's saying staying. Like, I don't know where you're getting at. It's a wait and see period.
Yeah, you mentioned the contract. I guess that has been out there a little bit. Is that are the Eagles trying to look through that contract and find ways? In other words, if they find something, do they want to get out of this contract if they can?
No, Mike. So what it is I'm glad you brought it up that way. What it really is this: if it comes down to that, they have to know what the recourse is. DeSean is not only in a contract; he's an employee. There's specific language under conduct detrimental. If I don't want to get too technical here, but there is some language in there that, depending on how it's interpreted, obviously DeSean will interpret it, and his agent will, and if he has an attorney, will interpret it some way. And the Eagles, Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, and their House counsel will look at it potentially a different way. It comes down to how you view it, but it's not as though I'm not defending DeSean here. Trust me, as a Jewish person, I'm disgusted by the comment, the stuff that he put on IG. But it's one thing if he took a shot at Jews himself, if he did a video, if he said so, if that would have got him cut immediately. There's no debate about. Like if you say something about somebody, that's you saying it. Now, if you take someone else's quotes, that's where it becomes debatable. You can say whatever you want if you don't agree with me. I'm just telling you the way it is. Covering this league for 21 years, and it's in social media. It's what the interpretation is. This is how I view it because I've done a lot of work on this thing. Because contract language is something I've looked at in my entire career, and agents have explained to me, and attorneys. There are different ways to look at contract language. It's really interesting.
Julian Edelman put out a video essentially saying, I will bring you to a Holocaust museum and then we will go to an African-American museum so we can learn about each other. How big of an opportunity is this for DeSean Jackson to prove to Jeffrey Lurie and everybody else, I'm willing to learn?
Yeah, I love that. I thought it was awesome. Someone texted me that, and it was awesome by Edelman. And by the way, if you folks have a chance on Twitter, Zach Banner of the Steelers has an incredible. He has a couple really good tweets, videos about his thoughts on the DeSean Jackson situation. Make sure you follow him. It's ZACH Banner. It's really good stuff. But yeah, Hunter, I hope he does this. I really do. But that's obviously up to DeSean. But I you know what? It's funny when he said, and we would have some uncomfortable conversations. I don't know if you guys saw this. 3 or 4 weeks ago, Matthew McConaughey and Emmanuel Acho did a Twitter conversation. It was absolutely phenomenal. You have to see this, just on the race issues, and they both had a very uncomfortable conversation. It's just sum this up so guys so we can move forward. This is where we're at as a country, and social media has a lot to do with the good and the bad, unfortunately, but that's where we're at as a country right now.
We're talking with Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds. Check out the Inside the Birds podcast, and, of course, Football 4 powered by Inside the Birds. So just to finish this up real quick here, Adam, there will be no definitive yes, no, he's cut. They're going to give him a shot to kind of do something here is what we assume, right? Or is that not right?
Yeah, no, that is, but it's on competency because how does he handle himself? What
Yes.
happens?
And the hard part is it's not like he can just go meet with people and do things. I guess you can a little bit more freely now, but it's a lot more difficult to navigate doing things under the current environment of COVID.
Yes,
so
correct. That's what I said earlier. One other thing I would add is I had a funny joke with someone earlier today. I said it's too bad. It's too bad training camp didn't start tomorrow because we could somewhat put this behind us, but we can't because we've got 2.5 weeks and we just don't know what's going to happen. It's the unfortunate part of where we are.
Well, and you just said something that's very interesting. We have only 2.5 weeks. Who knew that? We got football about 10 to 12 days from now is when some of these.
We hope, yeah.
Right, exactly. And let's get to there. We hope. What is the current preseason training camp thought? They're going as planned, correct? There is no change to that.
Barring a major surprise. It's funny talking to a coordinator yesterday. He's getting so little information. He's just watching Twitter. He's just seeing what reporters are putting out. All he knows, he knows the report date that he has. He has no idea on scheduling. He has a general idea on the rules. He doesn't know how he doesn't know how he's going to structure his meetings, and he thinks they might actually be outdoors. They're just that the coaches are not getting a lot of feedback, and Coach, Moshe and I talk about this on our show that dropped this morning. On you could pick up on any podcast platform. The coach Jeff and I have talked to coaches, and they're not sure. In fact, Moshe's source, I thought this was interesting. Moshe, I'm not getting it from other people, but Jeff's source said he's not so sure training camp's going to open on time. So just keep an eye on that. We'll see.
Yeah, no, and that's why I kind of asked it was as these days and hours go on, it seems that the safety part of it, the players, you just mentioned Malik Jackson, that he came out and said, look, you're going to ask us to line up 6 feet across from the defensive lineman. Can't do it. Can't tackle a guy from 6 feet away. I mean, he made a lot of points that you're like, how are they going? Now, the NFL comes out and says you can't swap jerseys after the game, but you can tackle the guy to the ground. I mean, it seems bonkers.
Well, yeah, but I think that's a little bit overstated. The way it was explained to me by this coordinator who's from the defensive side of football was that on the sideline, you got to be distanced. On the field, you're not going to be now unless you get rid of 11 on 11 is going to be 11 on 11 if you have it. If they get rid of it, that's a different story. Like this coach was, and what he knew, they're going to take every precaution possible to get people distanced. But there's some part of football you can't, and that's going to stay. The final stuff for training camp is not out, by the way. No matter what people are saying, the final information for training camp is not out yet. A lot of it is, but it's not completely finalized according to the people I've spoken to. But what I'm telling you, Mike, is training camp, though, to sum this up, is going to be most different in our lives. And hopefully we won't have to go through something like this again next year.
I'm curious to get your thoughts on that Pat Mahomes contract. $500 million. How does that impact other quarterbacks who have not yet signed yet? Deshaun Watson, Dak, players like that.
Yeah, well, let's start with Dak. There's zero chance Dak signs a deal. If he signs a deal being remotely close to 10 years, it just won't happen. There's no way. I could not believe that when you look at the Chiefs situation, that they got Mahomes to agree to a 10-year deal. I know the money the cash money is high, but they could get out of it fairly easily after 3 years. He's got roster bonuses every year, which means if he's got to be on the roster to get the money, I don't know. I don't know what the hurry was on his part, and it's certainly a team-friendly contract. However, he's going to make a lot of money because the cash per year is very high, and that's the way he saw it. He certainly could have waited, but the club has leverage here because remember, they have next year's fifth year. If he didn't get a deal done, they have next year's fifth year option and 2 tags, and then so basically, without doing a contract, they have him under a minimum of 4-year team control. So they really have leverage here. But the fact of the matter is, Hunter, to answer your question, it's a deal that I don't think he had to do, but you know what? He gets financial security now for the rest of his life. Good for him. I met his mother at the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Great lady. You know his dad, Pat, who's a former pitcher in the Major League Baseball. He's got a chance not only to be a Hall of Famer, to be one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. And one thing I do want to add is he's the one player that NFL teams have admitted they completely missed on, and I think it's pretty funny that guys who I'm really close to have been honest. They know they missed on that one. No one saw what he's become, and it's a pretty good story.
Yeah, it's fun. We actually had Lee Steinberg on at the Super Bowl and asked
I know Lee. Yeah,
and asked him about the contract, and he kind of laughed like, we're not worried about that right now. But here we are, and he's.
You remember what he said about? What did he say about Joe Burrow? Was it Joe Burrow? No,
yeah,
Tua.
no.
Tua. What did he say about Tua?
That they were hoping that the Bengals.
Didn't draft him, right?
Yeah.
Didn't draft him.
He basically said, he said something about Mike Brown. Let's say if he had the first pick, we hoped he put I forget, but I know Lee wasn't too happy with me the next day. Let's say that. All right.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that. Okay, sorry.
He gave me the stink eye pretty good because that comment went all over the place. That being said, let me jump back here.
Sure.
Jason Peters, does his name come back into play with possibly no preseason and no training camp time?
My understanding was they've not shut the door. Money. One thing is though, if he comes back, I know a lot of people speculate this, and I don't disagree. He's coming back to start, but you have to have a contract that respects him as a future Hall of Famer and a great Eagle. But he's also 38 years old. That is really the challenge with bringing him back. Is how do you pay a 38-year-old player who's clearly only going to come back for 1 year? It's not easy to come up with a number that's fair to him. It's respectful, but it's also respectful for the football team. But one thing I do want to add, Mike, you and I had a private conversation. I just want to kind of clue your listeners in. The challenge here is, when it comes to Henry Dillard, Mike, and Hunter, is that had he had an off season, that would tell you all you need to know whether they need to bring Jason Peters back. Because if they had an off season and he had the 24-plus practices, they would be able to evaluate whether they need to bring Jason Peters back. He's not been on the field. I know. We reported on Inside the Birds 6 weeks ago. He's kept his weight up, and I know it's out there that it's actually over 330, which is actually higher than his playing weight, which is a good thing. But that doesn't tell you that he's strong enough. Just because you put weight on, and we don't know about his hand usage. Trey Thomas did one of our hunters. You produced it. You saw the video that Trey Thomas did with us. Trey made it very clear. His hands weren't very good. He has a big learning curve, and getting only training camp, I don't know if it's good enough. Preseason is going to be short anyway. But those missed practices, guys, in the offseason, I think is a real issue here. We'll see where this goes, though.
Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast. Make sure you check out their podcast for more on a lot of these. I want to get a couple of quick opinions. Raheem Mostert the other day said he wants to be traded. Interested. Is Howie Roseman, should he be interested?
Well, should he be? Yes, but I don't see it because I reported, as you know, Mike, on Carlos Hyde and also Devontae Freeman. The Eagles don't want to pay a lot of money for a backup running back. There's no sharing. Sanders is the guy. It's whatever's out there is completely false. I put that to bed 2 months ago, and Doug Peterson backed me up without even talking to him. He basically said on another radio station in our market that Sanders is the guy and there's no committee. So to move this forward here, Raheem Mostert wants to get more money. So so why would he? We can answer your question. They're not going to bring in somebody who's going to make probably more than two. In fact, I think the number that I had heard is somewhere between $1 and $1.5 million. So Raheem Mostert wants more than $2 million. This makes no sense to me, but Raheem's a good football player, and I'll tell you what. I had no idea how talented he was. I don't know if you saw the Packer playoff game. My God, is he fast, and he's a good football player, and he's also a great special teams player. It's one of the good things that Chip Kelly left the 49ers.
I asked that question because one of your former colleagues emailed me this morning with the subject line, Eagles should trade for Mostert.
I don't. Let's put it this way: he would help them, but it's a money situation.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised because think about it. You're taking somebody else's problems. The guy said, Mostert's agent. I know his agent. He put it on Twitter. He put the news out there so we don't have to guess. He wants more money. Niners don't want to do it.
Scheduled to be paid $2.5 this season, $2.8 next year as part of a 3-year contract he signed last year. So
right. So his total compensation is, by the way, 2.5. I don't know if it's 2 plus, whatever he's got in his deal. But the bottom line is, Mike, to move this along, why would the Eagles bring him and pay more than $2.5 million total compensation? That's not what they're looking to do.
Yesterday, John Clayton on the air, we asked him about Clowney because he said Clowney would take a 1-year, $9 to $10 million deal. And he said he has turned down more money because he doesn't want to play for teams he doesn't think can win. And that's why he said if the Eagles were interested, he would be interested in them because he thinks they can win. So at 1 year, $9 to $10 million. And Clayton's interesting point was, Adam, the compensatory pick. The Eagles can sign him for a year, let him walk, and probably get a third-round pick. We know how he likes that.
Yeah, I reported, that the Eagles were not interested, and on Inside the Birds. And Jeff Mosher asked me, was there any scenario? And it's so funny you say $9 to $10 million. I was just speculating. I wasn't reporting anything. I kind of joked, said, well, maybe he was willing to take $9 to $10 million. And it was an offhanded comment, which I didn't really think anyone would care about. So the next time when we dropped the show, I got quoted in every newspaper. Caplan says the Eagles would sign him for $9 to $10 million, and I got hell for that from some people. I didn't really mean it. I was speculating. So it's just funny that my friend John, who I know very well, said that. So maybe he has some intel on what Klein's willing to take, and that may be true. But my understanding was that the Eagles had a real issue with Klein's injury history, and obviously that ties into money. Look, I've been on the record, so I might as well just say this. I said if they were going to do anything major, they would get involved in the Yannick Ngakoue situation, but they're not. But I said if they were going to, that would be the guy because they like to get somebody who doesn't if you're going to pay someone big money, you want to go after someone who doesn't have an injury history and has an unbelievable upside and would be here for a long time. The Clowney stuff, I'm glad you brought up. I'll check into it, certainly, over the next 48 hours, but I've not heard that the Eagles still – I've heard nothing on the Eagles still having any interest in him, but we'll see.
Adam Caplan, it's Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. The new podcast drops, and, of course, you hear Adam every Thursday here as part of Football at 4. Tomorrow, Andrew DeCecco is in. Monday, Jeff Mosher is here, and InsideTheBirds.com has plenty more, and the Inside the Birds podcast is fresh and ready for your ears. Adam, have a great weekend, friend.
Thanks, guys.
All right, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.